Psychonauts is a game that fascinated me as a teen, and like many titles from my youth, I cannot help but wonder if that fascination was born more from naivete than the quality of the work. So it was with the upcoming release of Psychonauts 2 that I yearned to delve back into that title from my halcyon days. What I found was a fascinating evolutionary dead end. A game that saw the end of traditional point-and-click adventures and put its hat into the ring purporting that puzzle platformers were the future. Needless to say, that did not happen, and what was the adventure game genre instead forked off more so into thoughtful and plodding walking simulators. But that's a story for another time. So let's take a look at this Double Fine Dodo and see if it has more of a place in our world than it won. The beginning of Psychonauts had me baffled and repeatedly asking the question, who was this game made for? Much of the hype around Psychonauts was directly related to its flagship developer, Tim Schafer, who worked in various capacities and to different degrees on many of the best-known titles in the adventure game genre, like Monkey Island, Day of the Tentacle, Full Throttle, and Grim Fandango. While many of those titles were aimed at teens and young adults, Psychonauts, adopting the setting of a summer camp for children somewhere between the age of 8 and 12, is odd to say the least. Especially when this setting does lead to about as much cringy writing and juvenility as you would expect.
The government archives might have some information about your young girlfriend, Goggalor.
Well, I don't know if she's really my girlfriend. I think she...
I only meant that she is your friend who was a girl, Goggalor.
Despite how childish the game can sometimes seem, much of the humor remains aimed at the original demographic of those older adventure titles, leading me to wonder just who this game was intended for and if that question was given much thought at all in conjunction with its setting. I wouldn't be surprised if many bounced off this game within the first hour or so, since this really is a title that starts off with some of its worst writing and most boring level design. Many of the game's more nuanced facets and ideas not making themselves known for hours on end. A wonderful example of this is the way that Oleander's mind is presented, as at first he seems to be exactly who he presents, a tough, no-nonsense psychic drill sergeant. His days as a war hero long behind him, he is proudly able to retire and train the next generation. Much of this is revealed through one of the game's key mechanics for storytelling, memory vaults. These vaults contain memories stashed within the minds of their owners. They may be prized moments from their lives, singular triumphs and heroic ventures, but they may just as well be traumas and failings. Regardless of the form they take, they are the moments that defined them and shaped them into who they are today. Oleander's first vault is a montage of pride, every triumphant and heroic moment from his vast and impressive military career. The observant in the crowd will note at tell that not everything in these memories may be reliable. His imagined height in these memories make it clear this is a front, the way he presents himself to others and how he wants to believe he lived his life. This is likely to not be noticed by many players in the first time through, however, especially since his second memory vault, which makes this twist clear, is not made available to the player till somewhere near the middle of the game. I understand why you would want to keep this opaque, as revealing that Oleander was never allowed in any military and swore his revenge against all who would malign him for his stature too early would be too much to tell. But giving the player almost no indication that he is anything but what he says off the bat makes the game feel more shallow than later writing would prove it to be. I do not mean to complain over much about this, as the slow and steady reveal of Oleander's secrets is incredibly satisfying if you stick around to see them. But it's worth some criticism, as we do need to remember this game was a tremendous commercial failure, bankrupting its publisher Majesco. I think many of the points I've outlined here likely significantly contributed to that fact. If Psychonauts had a setting more appealing to its demographic, and maybe got off to a better start, perhaps we wouldn't have had to wait 16 years to get a sequel. Psychonauts immediately becomes more interesting when the secret agent, Sasha 9, takes center stage. He and his counterpart, Mia Vodello's levels, both present very similar ideas in entirely different ways. Nine's mind is presented as a perfectly compact cube, the model of a mind completely condensed into a precisely efficient single point. But when Raz's impatience pushes Nine's mind, it snaps back like a spring wound far, far too tightly. Nine's mind weeps forth every memory, trauma, and fragment of himself, revealing that at a young age he lost his mother and lived a solitary life with his father growing ever distant. His only friends were small bugs in his father's shoe workshop. When he tried to reach into his father's mind to see the mother he never had a chance to know, he is afforded a window into their life and an opportunity to experience what his mother was like. But when that window grows disturbingly intimate, he withdraws entirely from his father. His life as a cobbler may have been solitary, but it was simple. However, when he left home, he had no choice but to pursue intense and dangerous factory work. All of this put together pushed Sasha into himself. So as the world took from him one thing after another, left him alone, he took control where he could, inside his own mind. In this mental world, he can be in total control. Here, no one can take from him anything he does not allow. Nothing can take shape unless he allows it, but Raz's trip through Nine's mind shows that to be just a facade. Nine's internal world is a pressure cooker, where the slightest fault in its system can cause explosive failure. Mia is the perfect counterpoint to Nine, where in response to all that happened to him, Nine tightened his mind into a steel trap. Mia faced loss and let go into a calculated facade of exuberance. While I won't say the high energy and bubbliness is entirely to suppress the unwanted memories inside her, they do nonetheless seem a vital part of her coping mechanism. Similar to Oleander, she puts on a strong front, her first vault almost identical to his, showing the many triumphs of her Psychonaut career. Only this time I have little reason to doubt her accomplishment. But again, similar to Oleander, this is still her front and the way she hopes people will see her. Locked away in the recesses of her mind is the scar left by her loss. She used to run an orphanage, but one day when she left for groceries, she returned to see it ablaze. Even with all her power, she was unable to save a single one of her adopted children. While we cannot know every step on our journey from then to now, we can know how she ended up. The life of a psychonaut and the persona of a party girl, all done at least in part to atone and to run from a failure she longs to forget. With all this rumination upon trauma and loss, it's easy to forget this is intended as a light-hearted romp through a cartoon summer camp. And that camp is host to one of the game's most fun characters, Agent Ford Cruller. Cruller plays the role of janitor, cook, dockmaster, park ranger, and psychic headmaster of the camp. One persona for nearly every area of the park. It isn't long before his role as an instructor for our protagonist Rasputin is revealed in his secret underground lair. A side note, I love that the entrances to the lair are disguised as tree stumps, and that the exit in his lair is still a tree stump. It's one of Psychonauts' better subtle jokes. It's Cruller's lessons that teach us more about Raz, explaining his acrobatic acumen as a byproduct of his upbringing, as his family are traveling trapeze artists. When asked to create some target dummies in his mind, he conjures tents from his time at the circus. Serving to subvert the trope of the child that ran away to the circus to start their life, Raz fled the big top to escape his psychic-hating father. This serves nicely to wrap Raz's personality and ability set together seamlessly while providing at least some level of depth to his character with tremendous efficacy. It is also on the campgrounds that the majority of the scavenger hunt takes place. While a small part of the game, it's always enamored me, requiring a mix of platforming skills, persistence, and creative use of your psychic powers. Each item is satisfying to finally acquire when your search pays off or you get the ability needed to reach an item. While some items require obtuse usage of your abilities, the skull. Overall, the scavenger hunt adds much incentive to explore your environment, as every nook and cranny of the overworld map could hide a juicy scavenger item. While talking about incentives to explore the map, the fluidity with which Raz moves about the environment, especially after getting Levitate, makes traversing every level enjoyable. The opportunities that the levitation ball gives to gain tremendous amounts of speed while also requiring precise maneuvers to maintain control makes movement as skillful as it is entertaining. And of course, like any good platformer, there's a tremendously exploitable set of skill-based movement glitches, most notably in the infinite levitation jump that allows for further skill expression. And I mean, come on. Who doesn't love a game where one of your primary abilities is setting things on fire with your brain? While Mia, Nine, and Oleander provide no shortage of interest, I think most people would agree with me when I say the game really begins when the giant hulking lungfish of Lake Oblongata makes her first appearance. After discovering through a twisted shared mindscape that Coach Oleander has been working together with a mad scientist named Dr. Loboto, Raz attempts to coordinate with his budding crush Lily to save the camp. It is now that the aforementioned giant mutant lungfish is able to deceive Lily with a fake plastic flower and capture her for debraining. After an unpleasant auto-scroller, Cruller warns Raz that the lungfish, despite her monstrous appearance, is more afraid of Raz than he is of her. And with that, we enter Lungfishopolis. If Mia and Nine's levels were interesting for their subtlety, Lungfishopolis is amusing for just how loud its themes are. Adopting the form of a giant hulking human child kaiju, Raz must rampage his way through the fair Lungfish City to destroy the psychological manifestation of the mind control device in the lungfish's brain. I doubt anyone could have expected the way this level is framed and executed, but there's more to be found here than novelty. The added weight to Raz's movement and the change of focus from platforming to combat really sell the idea you're a massive rampaging monster from an 80s Godzilla movie. The ability to smash buildings on a whim and toss tanks around like mere toys while tiny lungfish mourn the losses of their orphanages and mattress factories completely sell the fantasy. Meanwhile, the Resistance Army in Oleander's propaganda broadcast provides some of the best humor the game has to offer thus far.
Goggalor, come in. We have commandeered these vessels in your name.
We can put them in position to help you cross Kochamara Channel to get to Kochamara Island and destroy Kochamara Tower.
The thing is that, although we have the utmost faith that you will soon contain the area, Goggalor, we
just think it best
we've decided to maintain our position out here.
just until you clear the area of all hostiles.
Yes.
For insurance reasons, Goggalor.
Yes, that, and for freedom.
Well, things have gotten a little embarrassing for Goggalor. Recently surfaced information has strongly linked the previously intimidating monster with common low-life criminals. Earlier tonight, Goggalor broke some of his jailhouse cronies out of the slammer so they could enjoy a night on the town, popping pills and soliciting inexpensive call girls. Well, they're in for one nasty hangover. Our beloved Navy has come up with a high-tech new invention. Trucks armed with hyper-electricity. Kidnapping children do not harm the brains.
And if you were concerned that the lungfish might not get the attention as a character that everyone has up to this point, you will find that concern unwarranted, as the first vault provides wonderful perspective on the events that converted the mindscape of the lungfish into what we see today, prompted by the Power Man-esque Oleander. Through a mix of propaganda and psychological manipulation, he was able to entirely dominate the psyche of the poor lungfish. Meanwhile, the second vault, found deeper in the mind of the lungfish, chronicles what happened to it outside this fishbowl, depicting the tragic tale of how she was stolen from a happy life in a carefully created air bubble beneath the lake, and her body was changed to suit Loboto's monstrous need, while her mind was assaulted by Oleander. The careful and deliberate oppression of the poor helpless lungfish makes liberating her from Oleander all the more satisfying, and it feels earned when she reveals her true name to you, the noble title given to the lungfish by her people, Linda. That brings us to the moment in Psychonauts it is most well known for, the abandoned asylum and the mind of Boyd Cooper, aka the Milkman. I am almost loath to discuss Boyd's Mind because I think it is one of the most analyzed levels in gaming, and I sincerely doubt there is anything I can say that someone has not already pointed out. That isn't going to stop me, though, because the Milkman conspiracy is worthy of every bit of praise that can be given to it. Boyd blocks Raz's access to the asylum, Lily and the rest of the kids from the camp, so he has no choice but to enter Boyd's mind and do whatever is necessary to force Boyd to open the gate. Boyd sees the world as a twisted web of conspiracies, and his mind adopts that form as well. His synapse is twisted beyond recognition. Every single mundane aspect of the most benign objects are turned into hunting, prowling eyes, searching for those they know that they know. Every level in Psychonauts thus far has diverged from the traditional design of platformers with more open and various objectives, switched to being within a more linear level structure focused on accomplishing a single specific objective. This is seen no better than in the Milkman Conspiracy, where the genre of the game changes almost entirely to be a more traditional adventure game, defined by its puzzle elements. I love the agents in this level. Their childish masquerades as ordinary citizens provide some of the game's most choice humor.
I am making a pie.
I hope you are not trying to steal my husband, tramp.
I am a grieving widow.
I am your sister in grief. I am
Yes! Burn!
Why, God? Why? They got Freddy. Poor Freddy. He was such a good secret agent. I mean, assassin. Who is shooting at us? I am found on rooftops, in clock towers, and book depositories.
I also really like how when captured, the agents will grill Raz about the many actions he's taken throughout the town, all the way from things as mundane as walking into one of the many empty houses to acquiring a new disguise.
Who do you think you're fooling? Why are you looking for the milkman? Who is the milkman? What did the rainbow squirt tell you? What happened inside that house? Where did you get the red sign?
Each zone controlled by the agents requires you to blend in as they do. With a stop sign, you're a road crew worker. With a rolling pin, a housewife. With some flowers, a grieving widow. Each item representative of an archetypal concept makes you into that thing in the eyes of the agents. It's also quite notable that this is the first level that requires the mental cobweb duster to complete. This works as more than an attempt to get you to fully explore the grounds of the summer camp one last time for a few bucks, as mental cobwebs are meant to represent areas of the mind left neglected, and making paths vital to progression locked behind these signs of decay signify that Boyd has left not just the trivial parts of his mind to age unchecked, but core parts of his psyche. His focus on the endless spirals of the Milkman conspiracy has begun to destroy the core elements of Boyd Cooper. Not only does the conspiracy align itself with adventure games in that you must find items that allow you to progress through a series of contrived roadblocks, but it follows in the oldest and proudest of adventure game traditions, being an absolute asshole. Raz gives an excellent example of how not to help someone with paranoid delusions, as at every turn he feeds into Boyd's mental machinations, chasing the milkman and giving legitimacy to Boyd's wild claims. It is ultimately one of the agents that represents Boyd's attempt to find and eliminate the threat of the milkman in his mind who uncovers the elusive dairy dealer, but not without significant help from Raz. I always thought it convenient that the milkman was found just as Raz had a dead end with his search. But what if that was no convenience at all? What if it was Raz chasing the milkman and giving Boyd more reason to believe that finally broke the stalemate in his mind? What if Boyd always believed in the milkman, but it was Raz echoing that idea back to him that truly gave him form? Regardless of if you believe that, it is Raz that rouses the milkman from his deathly slumber and allows him to destroy any defensive measures Boyd has left in his mind, all to open a gate. Boyd is the milkman now. His milk is delicious, and he has a special delivery for you. After the long delve through Linda and Boyd's mind, the game reaches its first and only non-linear segment, giving you an objective to disguise yourself as Dr. Lobato and the 3 patients of the abandoned asylum with problems you need to solve to assemble that disguise. A trophy from the washed-up actor Gloria, a straitjacket from the descendant of Napoleon, Fred Bonaparte, and a painting of Lobato from a tortured artist, Edgar Tegley. Gloria's mind is quite similar to the Milkman's in the concepts it emphasizes, with a focus on puzzle solving, with the gimmick of this level being that it all takes place in one confined space, a theater. Gloria is unique, as she is the only character that does not appear in her own mind. Instead, we are treated to her internal muse, Bonita Soleil.
Soleil, I heard you were feeling bad, so I just wanted to say that whatever you're going through, you're not alone. I used to be a performer myself, and I know how hard it is when...
Kid, can't you see I'm trying to have a moment here?
Her performances in the theater of her own mind are constantly undermined by a mysterious phantom. The player is told that the only way to the Phantom's lair is a hot air balloon used in a single scene of one of the theater's plays, and so the objective given is to find the right combination of scene and play to get the balloon to descend that you might ride it back up. While I enjoy the premise of the level, it feels incredibly short, much of a result of it taking place in one location. Adding to the feeling of shallowness is that Bonita's story plays out almost exactly straight. She was abandoned by her mother at a harsh theater school as a child, and was able to attain great success as an adult. However, one day she got a letter informing her that her mother had jumped off a building, ending her own life, and she was unable to psychologically recover. Her acting steadily worsened, and unable to take the criticism, Gloria broke. After a bit of some pretty easy puzzle solving, it's revealed that the critic in the theater was the Phantom all along. I think that at least some of this just doesn't track. Why is she so attached to her mother, who left her to rot in a miserable boarding school that she absolutely despised? Why is the critic emblematic of the grief she had for her mother? I understand he's meant to represent the internalized self-doubt imposed by those who doubted her in her moment of grief, but it feels like it was read that the loss of her mother was her trauma, not necessarily the criticism. While still mostly enjoyable, I think Gloria's level is the only one that really fails to deliver on either being satisfying mechanically or well thought out from a thematic perspective, and it feels all the weaker when she is surrounded by absolute gold, both before and after it, no matter when you choose to play it. Speaking of gold, Fred's level is filled with it. Fred is trapped in a long twilight struggle with a genetic memory of the great Napoleon Bonaparte. Endlessly do they play their long game, a game of Waterloo. You must work with Fred to break the stalemate and give him the motivation to once again take the lead in his own mind. While not as deep as some of the characters, Fred's mind wins distinction more for just how good it feels to transition from board game to board game piece to tiny icon on the map, giving more motivation to the farmers and architects that will become the game's pieces. The seamless movement from each theater, wonderful set pieces, the numerous Easter eggs scattered throughout the level, and clever subversion of player expectation all make this level unforgettable. The farmers that turn into the game soldier and the builder are all excellent examples of this. The builder won't help you until you clear his roof of the burglars that have been trying to sneak into the chimney and are also definitely you.
Hello in there. Any carpenters home?
Go away, burglar.
I'm not a burglar. I'm a recruiter for Fred Bonaparte's army. We're a little light in our Corps of Engineers, see?
Listen, I know you're a burglar. I've been listening to your footsteps on my roof all night trying to break in. Why don't you just slide down the chimney? I got a nice fire going for you in here, Mr. Burglar.
Okay, if I'm a burglar, then how can I be down here talking to you and up on the roof at the same time?
Maybe you're a ventriloquist.
The first farmer wants only proof that Fred cares about the cause of the people. The second just wants some money for his family, and both of them are resigned to their death on the front lines, and so they do perish, despite Raz's admonishments that they might survive, and they should have more faith in themselves, honestly. The third farmer, however, has this to say.
Okay, there's your special musket. Ready?
All right, now I'm all set to go rob that stupid carpenter.
What? I got you that gun so you could fight Napoleon's army, not the carpenter.
I've been trying to break into his house for days now, but he's always got a fire going, so I can't get down his chimney.
Well, could you just fight this one lousy soldier first? He's kind of in the way anyway.
Okay, but just as practice. Where is he?
This cleverly wraps all of the minor plot lines that the level has been playing out up to this point and recontextualizes the player's actions. It might not surprise you to know this guy still dies anyways. After discovering that Fred fell into this downward spiral when he, as the chief orderly of the old asylum, lost a truly incredible amount of Waterloo games to Crispin Whitehead, now the chief henchman of Dr. Loboto, Fred was assailed by Napoleon himself until he regains his killer instinct. And it is this that Raz helps him to find. Defeating Napoleon, Fred doffs his straitjacket for Raz to wear and heroically takes a nap.
What? Nap?
War is hell, Rasputin, and I am sleepy.
Edgar Tegley, with his Black Velvetopia, has the best realized level of the 3 asylum inmates, and maybe the best level overall. A combination of the Pamplona Bull Run and many of the common trappings of Black Velvet, the style oozes over every single pixel of the digital landscape, singular not just within video games but any medium. Its striking aesthetic changes even the skin of Raz himself into a black velvet avatar. Edgar yearns to build a tower of cards to his long-lost love, Lampita, who looms over him in the sky. But an amusing bit of wordplay, he isn't playing with a full deck of cards, as his queens have been stolen. Without them, every time he nears his goal, the furious bull El Odio rips down the tower, and he must start all over again. So it is up to Raz to find Edgar's missing queens and help him assemble his tower, that the indomitable Dingo in Flagrante might fight the bull and put an end to the artist's suffering. By this point, you ought to be familiar with the way this plays out. First, there's the front. Edgar, the definitely real artist, who, if he can just overcome his block, can win back his love from the vile bullfighter. But as Raz progresses through the level, recovering the queens for Edgar and fighting his demons in the form of animal-themed luchadors, the cracks begin to show. The sewers are made of school bleachers and gym equipment. One of the painting dogs in the level puts it best.
Has Edgar always had a problem with...
No way. In fact, he used to be the captain of his high school wrestling team. He took them all the way to the state semifinals one year, and then he choked. Cost the team the entire match.
Why did he choke? Did they get him in one of those pile driver things?
No. Edgar's girlfriend, Lana Panzoni, dumped him after the first period for Dean LeGrand, the head of her cheerleading squad. Tegley was worthless after that. The other team just tossed him around the rest of the day like a half sack of pork rinds. Oh, man. His squad hated him after that. The whole school did.
How sad. Especially since it all happened to him again with Dingo and Lampita.
Oh, right. Yeah, they exist. Not made up at all, those two. Sheesh. Hey, I got some original Picassos over here if you're interested, by the way.
We even learn that his status as an artist was a facade, and that the truth is more akin that he just hid in the art room to hide from his fellow wrestlers after failing them. There are so many other nice little details in this level, like that the luchadors you fight each represent one of the former teammates of Edgar, that the paintings you use to traverse the level have numerous hidden applications to find hidden fragments and areas, and despite playing the game numerous times, I only found out this time around that you can get a hidden scene by casting Confusion on the last painting dog. There are so many unique little interactions hidden away in Psychonauts that reward player exploration. A great example is that every character has a hidden line of dialogue if they're hit with confusion, and that Fred can only be confused to say his line if you play Edgar's level before Fred's. Back on point, Raz fails to put the final twist together until it is too late. The bullfight starts with Raz facing off against El Odio, and when he has weakened the beast, it reveals itself as Edgar himself, who cannot contain his rage at the bullfighter and returns to his form to kill his tormentor. The bullfighter now fully revealed as the head of his high school cheerleaders that his beloved Lampita left him for.
Give me a G!
G!
Give me an O!
O!
Give me a B!
They stole my happiness,
Give me an F.
my life,
Give me an
the
O.
state semi-finals, everything!
The facade dropped entirely. Raz has to help the guy that peaked in high school see there's more to life by stabbing the source of that trauma in the chest repeatedly. From top to bottom, aesthetic to character, Black Velvetopia moves from strength to strength, and even the reveal of Edgar as a man somewhat comically trapped in a cage of high school drama makes him seem pathetic, but also sympathetic. Freeing him from that cage is a catharsis, and it feels as satisfying to walk away from Black Velvetopia as it did to enter it. The last mine put back in order, Raz is able to fully assemble his delightful Lobato disguise and fool Mr. Whitehead into entering his secret lair. I think that after this that Fred gets his revenge against Whitehead and proves, indeed, that he has been freed from his cage of apathy. From this point, the entire game pretty swiftly moves on to its final conclusion, freeing Lily and discovering that Mia and Nine's reason for not interfering thus far was that they were ambushed and had their brains extracted by Oleander. After jamming the brain of a suave turtle into a psychic death tank, Dr. Lobato is swiftly eliminated and Oleander debrained at the hands of Sasha and Mia. However, their inattentiveness to that brain leads to one last confrontation with Oleander, which ends with Raz debrained himself and the only safe haven for his gray matter inside the bubbling ooze that houses Oleander's mind. The fusion of nightmares gives birth to the final location of Psychonauts, the meat circus. Oleander's childhood anxieties of his father forcing innocent rabbits to the slaughterhouse combined with Raz's own downright demonic view of his father makes for nice spectacle and is also a reminder that a lot of the humor of the mid-2000s really did revolve both around lol so random and also maybe more inexplicably meat for some reason. All of this nicely serves to humanize and help heal Oleander of his daddy complex, and Raz's father intervening to save him completes his own arc to accept his lineage and identity. And so wraps Psychonauts. Or does it? It wouldn't do without one little bit of sequel bait. Lily's father and the leader of the Psychonauts has been kidnapped, and Raz, appointed as Psychonaut, is quickly recruited by Cruller to save him. Is it just me, or is it always the games and movies that most clearly set up a sequel that never get around to making them? Or even if they do, by the time they are made, the writers grow contemptuous of the hook they gave themselves and make it about something entirely different. This just never seems to work out. In the end, I must say that Psychonauts is fondly remembered for good reason. It is creative, bold, and makes excellent use of the medium of video games to craft incredibly imaginative worlds with unique framing. The way it communicates its ideas through gameplay is exemplary, expertly demonstrating why context matters. Psychonauts provides novel concepts with even more fantastical execution than could ever be conceived by the player. Almost every level fully realizes its potential to explore the minds of their subjects and turns them from mundane platforming fare into an unparalleled dive into the psyche of others. Behind every door is a wonder, and in every mind a secret. Psychonauts manages to capture the feelings of humanity in its characters better than most by exploring their many facets, their triumphs, failings, and trauma, all within the frame of an enjoyable platformer. There has never been a title that aimed to do what Psychonauts did, and we will soon see if its successor can stand proud beside its progenitor.